Welcome to Pixel It, a podcast about reading books adapted from video games. Because the only thing better than playing a video game is reading about one. I'm Kevin the Arcadeologist, along with Phil the Conquistador, and today we'll be discussing the opening chapters of S.T. Perry's Resident Evil: The Umbrella Conspiracy. As a content warning, there will be spoilers and descriptions of gore in this episode. And now, on with the show. Phil, you mentioned that you had done a little research, brief research into S.T. Perry. Can you tell me a little bit about her?
Yes, I'm actually really kind of excited about this because not only did I read a few of these Resident Evil novelizations when I was a teen, but S.T. Perry and her dad, Steve Perry, actually wrote a bunch of Aliens and Predator and Aliens versus Predator novels, and wrote all 7 of these original Resident Evil novelizations, which sometimes are based on one of the video games and sometimes are actual original novels. So in this case, where we are reading a novel based on the first Resident Evil video game, which I never finished.
You never finished the first game?
I never finished it, yeah. I even have the remake. I kept telling myself I was going to play it while I was reading this, but there's no evidence that that actually happened.
The book starts with a prologue, and it starts out with kind of like the classic, it's like newspaper clippings prologue. To be honest, it's not that different from the way the game starts out. If I recall correctly, it kind of starts out with a voiceover and ominous talking about these bizarre murders that have happened in the Arklay Mountains on the outskirts of Raccoon City.
The clippings they hint at these cannibal murders that are happening out there, different bodies that have been found, and vague speculation on what could be causing all of this. It's actually, I got to be honest, a pretty decent kind of prologue for what we're going to get into.
Yeah, it's a nice way to get the book started. My feelings on the book going forward after that, it goes up and down, but it starts out on a strong.
Precisely, we've got to say something nice about it right off the bat.
It's compliment sandwich.
Exactly.
But it acts as kind of like the lore dump for what we're heading into. Obviously, whatever's in the books can't be necessarily considered quote unquote canon for the video game series because it's, the games dictate their own canon.
Sure.
I did notice though that it did provide a little bit of extra context that's never really provided in the games as to what the STARS organization is. In the games themselves, STARS always kind of seemed like, oh, well, we don't want to call them SWAT, so we're calling them STARS. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, but you know what we're doing. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
In this book version of the universe, STARS is its own privately funded organization, like paramilitary organization that works with the
mercs.
Police. They're mercs, and it's problematic on a whole other level of cop relationship.
They do have some disparaging remarks for the local Raccoon City Police Department in here that are actually kind of more politically charged when read nowadays than I'm sure they were meant to be in '96.
Yeah, it is kind of funny looking back at this book that was written 23 or so years ago, and reading some of the things that they say about the Raccoon City Police Department and the police chief and all that stuff. And it's like, it's a little awkward reading this now.
There are actually a lot, and I made a point of noting a few of them, and I'm sure you did the same thing. There are actually a lot of moments in this book that I was just like, oh boy, this is not going to age well. You have no idea how not well this is going to age.
Right into chapter 1, we're following the perspective of one Jill Valentine. And Jill Valentine, everybody's favorite. One of the things that is never really dealt with in the Resident Evil franchise is thorough backstories for the characters.
Absolutely not.
So all you really know about Jill is she's in her early 20s and she's a member of STARS. When we first meet her in Resident Evil 1, you never really learn much beyond that. The book actually does an interesting job of kind of fleshing her out a little bit more, that she is the daughter of some master thief named Dick Valentine. He's a master thief. He's the best of the best, except he got caught.
It's very romantic. It's very European art thief, the way they describe it.
Exactly. Which you really don't get nowadays.
No, it's a shame. It's one of the first things that doesn't age well. We do not have vaguely European art thieves on the scale that we used to.
We don't have the cat burglars that we can really look up to anymore. And
the gentleman thief.
The gentleman thief. When I was a kid, I really thought that was a valid profession that, you could go to trade school for.
I actually was planning on becoming a professor. That's actually when we met. We met in grad school. I wanted to be a professor. And if that wasn't going to work out, I wanted to be a gentleman thief. And unfortunately, these days, both of those career paths are not exactly the fun time frolics that they used to be. So,
no, I think the thief would probably be better use of your time than being a professor.
Oh, yeah, the pay's better, too. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting the way they did her because it's kind of like she's this former criminal, as her dad was, teaching her how to be a criminal, slowly getting her into that lifestyle piece by piece. But then she got kind of invested in her community. Right. And it's this kind of weirdly heartwarming Leave It to Beaver kind of I like my community. So she's kind of like our Han Solo. She started out at some point as devil may care kind of person, but now she's doing it for a good cause, man. She really cares about the little people.
Yeah. It gets right into the two little girls that she had befriended that lived across the street that ultimately became victims of these cannibals, these cannibal murderers. She becomes ingratiated in her community. She leaves the thieving life behind. Dick Valentine is in jail. And she joins STARS. That's pretty much where we leave her off until it kind of jumps over to the point of view of everybody's favorite Chris Redfield.
The boy next door, the Captain America, the great Chris Redfield. He's not late. He's as far as we know, still alive.
Chris Boulder Puncher Redfield.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and he's immediately they throw him into the good cop role. And he's also, on top of all of that, he very quickly they hint at that he's not happy the way this investigation has been going. He's got a bad feeling.
He's got a bad feeling. He's got a friend who is on the inside and who's disappeared.
Oh, yeah. And no one's listening to him. And so he's just keeping it to himself. He's like the scientist in a Roland Emmerich movie.
The day after tomorrow is coming and nobody is listening to Chris Redfield.
Right. Exactly. And it's just, they're just not listening to him. And I love, and speaking of Roland Emmerich, this is my first quote for this whole thing. There's this great exchange, which I was just like, oh, right. This is the 90s. And she's writing for a 90s audience. Right. And it goes like this. Barry scowled good-naturedly. Old Barry could easily kick your ass into next week, little man. Joseph looked at him mock seriously. Yeah, but would you remember it afterwards? And it's like Barry's the older guy in the group, so they're making fun of the fact that he can't.
Yeah.
I'm jumping ahead here, but the whole team is.
Yeah, I think it's this weird Resident Evil universe ageism where Chris is 24, right? And Jill is 22, and Rebecca we haven't met Rebecca yet, but she's 18. You know how old? Just turned 18. You know how old Barry is?
38.
I think he's 35 in this.
No, he's 38.
Oh, he's 38.
I'm writing that down because that's my age.
He's your age. He's 38.
He's my age, and it really fucked with me.
He's 38. They're calling him the old man.
Right. He's the old man of the group. And it just, he's the good-natured, grizzled old veteran of the team at 38 years old. My God. I can't believe they haven't forced him to retire yet. And then of course we get, in Barry's moment here, we get the intro, basically the intro to the Spencer house, the mysterious Spencer house and all the dark lore associated with it, and its connection to, everyone hold their breath, the Umbrella Corporation.
Oh God, no! Anybody?
My God,
that's the name of the book.
That's the name of the book. I wonder if there's going to be a conspiracy there.
Insert Leo DiCaprio pointing at the TV meme.
Right. And it's disappointing though, because I don't recall at any point in these books when a character looks at another character and says, "We're facing a resident evil" or something. It just doesn't happen. And I feel like that's a huge letdown.
It is a huge letdown. Something I noted about Barry and the way he's described, I highlighted it because I thought it was absurd. Barry Burton was only 6 feet tall, but built like a truck.
I noticed that too. I was like, isn't the average height of a man like 5'8"? Why is it? I can't point that out.
Why are we height shaming Barry Burton?
Right, poor Barry. Meanwhile, Rebecca was 7.5 feet tall, and Chris Redfield could barely fit over under the overhang of a gas station.
Everybody else on Stars was at least 6'5".
Right.
That should be noted.
And a magnificent 9'4" Wesker was of average height for the team. Hell, I noticed that too.
So yeah, Barry was only 38. He had been with Stars for 15 years. And the lore dump with George Trevor, who is the architect of the Spencer Mansion. The whole George Trevor stuff, it's an interesting piece of lore and information. George Trevor actually doesn't really become super integral to the story until the remake comes out, and they really flesh out his role, his involvement, and more importantly, I believe it's his daughter is one of the most horrifying villains in the Resident Evil franchise history. Lisa Trevor. She's basically just this invincible creature that stalks the mansion.
Well, that's I've always found that sort of thing. The adaptation stuff is fascinating because it's like, how much of this did they give the author and how much of it did the author just kind of wing, and honestly, is there a chance that maybe S.D. Perry wrote something in here that they came back to later and like, oh yeah, let's put that in the remake or something? I highly doubt that, but
I have my doubts, but I don't know. I don't know if if the Capcom team was really into taking outside sources. I do know it was probably around this time or a year later when I'm trying to remember who on the Capcom team said it, but they had hired George Romero to write a treatment for the first Resident Evil movie.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
It's actually online. You can it's not a treatment. It's a full on script. It's out there. You can if you Google it, you can probably find it online. And it's fine. It's a lot closer to the game than the Resident Evil movie that we ended up getting. It actually featured the characters from the game in the movie.
What? That's crazy. That would never work.
And they said his script was, quote, not very good. I would probably say that. They probably had given S.D. Perry some sort of Bible of stuff that she could put in the book. Like, here's the basic plot of the book, and here's stuff that you find in the mansion that you can kind of fold in.
Let's move on to chapter 2.
Yeah.
These people, the whole point is all of these people, these Stars representatives, are coming in for a meeting. They've been called to a meeting where they're informed basically that the dead, all the people who've been dying, it's this serial murdery kind of horrific story that's been plaguing the town for for months at this point, and all the dead are assumed to have been killed by a cannibalistic cult.
Yes.
That's what they go with. That's their only real idea.
I just want to read the passage. I highlighted it because it's like I can't imagine anyone outside of the 1980s saying this with a straight face. This is Jill. She looked up at Wesker and made her pitch. My theory at this point is that there's a possible ritualistic cult hiding in the mountains, 4 to 11 members strong, with guard dogs trained to attack intruders in their territory.
It sounds like a movie pitch, like these producers. All right, we're making this movie. All right, so it's a cult. There are killer dogs everywhere.
Yeah, this will work.
The 90s.
It's basically that's basically like the plot of Dragnet.
Right.
The Dan Aykroyd, Tom Hanks Dragnet. It's just set it in Los Angeles, and there you go.
I found it kind of amazing how they all kind of agree after that. Like when her pitch, they all agree that that's probably
there's like that's probably
best bet. But they also agree that the idea is crazy. Which, don't get me wrong, in real life, I would expect that to be their reaction. I would expect them to be like, a cannibalistic cult. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, but, so there's a level of reality there, which is kind of in contrast to the campiness that Resident Evil became known for. It's really amusing, actually.
And this whole scene is happening. They're all gathered around a dry erase board where Wesker is writing down words on the dry erase board as to, this one word from what you said. Yeah, we're going to write this down. So he writes down territoriality.
It's a brainstorming session.
It's a brainstorming session. Meanwhile, the Bravo team has already left. The Bravo team is already on like an advanced scouting mission to do. Meanwhile, the Alphas. It
made me crazy, by the way, that the Bravo team was the one who had left first. That didn't sit well with me, but that's just a personal thing.
Yeah, it's
no, but you're right. Like, you and I have both been in writers' rooms. That's what this is. This is a writer's room.
It became a writer's room. And I just want to rewind back to the beginning because I had to highlight one of the things that I am always kind of on the lookout for whenever I read the top military procedural type things is kind of like jargon, but out of place jargon. So who said this? I think I'm assuming it's Wesker saying this. The RPD has already established a perimeter search spanning sectors 1, 4, 7, and 9. It's the central zones we're concerned with, and Bravo will set down here. And I'm like, it's meaningless. Sectors 1, 4, 7, and 9 in the central zones. Out of how many sectors? And then later, much later, a chapter from now, it's like, well, we're going to have to set down in sector 22. And like, 20, how is it a perimeter?
It's like,
what is the perimeter? Is this like a gerrymandered? Is this like a gerrymandered congressional district?
Well, they don't. Yeah. All right, over in these sectors, everyone's going Republican. It's really the best way. I know it looks weird.
I know it looks like a fish hook.
Like a T that had sex with a Q. But that's the way the people are living. I swear. That's the town. It's a weird town. I know. Speaking of Weskers, we do get our introduction to him. He's the new captain. He's he's very professional, but he's still got to prove himself to the crew. He's that guy. Like,
right.
Everyone's kind of, a little. How's this guy gonna do? He's the new guy, but he's in charge. He's got authority, so no one knows how to take it. Which is another 90s trope. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and he's got his aviators and his high and tight blonde haircut. I'm not sure they actually give a physical description of Wesker's hair in this. I'm trying to remember.
Not to my I don't recall.
It's like it's very clear in my mind. Like the way
Sure.
Albert Wesker looks is in my head. I can close my eyes and see his face. I don't see eyes. I see sunglasses and the high and tight blonde. It's almost like, if Guile from Street Fighter had realistic hair. That's Wesker.
Kyle from Street Fighter had forgotten about his America tattoo and become a contractor.
Exactly. He joined up with Blackwater or one of those mercenary groups.
That would be a dark take on the character.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna fold that into my Street Fighter adaptation that
I see that you do.
That I'm working on.
Now they've been and like you mentioned, the first team, the Bravo team, sent in, like they went in first, they radio in, and they almost immediately lose the signal in the copter, which suggests a crash at the Spencer estate. And I've written here in my notes, shit has hit the fan.
Oh yeah.
That's how you know.
It has. Yeah, that's how you know the game is about to start. Something, and I don't know if this bothers you as much as it bothers me, is the consistent use of copter as opposed to
with the apostrophe. With the apostrophe,
as opposed to just writing helicopter occasionally.
Right. It's copter. We really needed to. I would say we really needed to save those 4 letters, but we had an apostrophe, so it's really the 3 that we're worried about.
And let me be honest. I'm a chopper guy. I was
just gonna say, no one calls them copters. People call them choppers.
They're choppers. They're not copters.
Yeah.
It's been a chopper. Good. It's been a chopper since Predator. You can't call it.
I was just gonna say. A perfectly good get to the chopper moment. Wasted. Never to be seen.
Copter is just awkward. It's still 2 syllables. But it's got the p and the t right next to each other. I'm not a fan of copter.
I'll never understand that decision.
And it was appearing a lot in this chapter, so I was not.
It happens a few times, yeah. Right up until the copter disappears.
Right until the copter, they're in Sector 22, tail end of C. Except I've lost the signal. The transmitter's offline, and that's just more gerrymandering.
The chapter does end with the alphas on their way to rescuing the betas, which I have also written here in my notes. Insert MRA joke here.
Well, they're the Bravos, not the betas.
Oh, Bravos. Well, in that case, that was my problem. That's my Freudian slip.
You can call off the men's rights activists.
Thank God. I've got to go talk to somebody. Apparently, that was just in my head. I got no one to blame but myself for that.
The only person you have to blame is your inner incel.
Thank God, that guy is a shrimp. I can take him.
A lot of this chapter just felt like filler. We got a lot of little vignettes and background of most of the important players. Now we have this weird little interstitial scene of Jill and a mystery man.
Yes, and that brings us to chapter 3, glorious chapter 3, where Jill is confronted in the locker room by a mysterious gentleman, let's say, who goes by the name of Trent.
Which is the most 90s mysterious guy name.
It truly is.
It's like, it could have been Trent, or it could have been like Clive. Like, those would have been acceptable names for mysterious trench-coated man. I believe he is wearing a trench coat.
Oh, yes. Here, I've got a wonderful piece of quote here that I love. This is just brilliant. This is just the best description of anyone in this book so far. She trailed off as he shook his head, grinning broadly, his dark eyes twinkling with mirth. You mistake my intentions, Miss Valentine. Excuse my manners, please. My name is Trent, and I'm a friend to the stars. And it sounds like he's about to, like, tell her, like, and if you solve my 3 riddles, I'll bring you untold riches. Like, his eyes are twinkling with mirth and he gives her this, like, disc reader.
Yeah, I highlighted the eyes twinkling with mirth, grinning broadly. What I really like about this book is that there are opportunities for the purplest of prose, and she goes for it.
Yeah, there's some wonderful gore descriptions in this book.
Yeah,
I have to say, for whatever other weaknesses it has, like some of the descriptions of death and mayhem are actually pretty over the top and fun.
Yeah, no, they work for the brand. It works.
Oh yeah, it's completely on brand. So that works. But yeah, and you get into this guy.
Let me couch all of my criticisms with this. Like, everything that happens in the book is actually very on brand for the game itself. Every bit of dialogue, it all dovetails very nicely into the gore but schlockiness that is Resident Evil. Everything is serious, so self-serious, but you can tell there's a little wink and a nod behind it. It's not
very much so.
It's self-aware, at least.
Yes, precisely. It is not trying to be anything beyond a Resident Evil novelization. That's the thing. I will say the author, she's clearly having fun with a lot of this.
And just like that, like any other mysterious man, he was gone. He's gone. He's a melodramatic old spy movie. Yeah. So that is Jill's interlude with Trent. Meanwhile, over by the helicopter, Wesker's getting a little impatient because Jill is taking her time getting the crap out of the lockers.
Yeah, and everyone's taking their time, and I like that we get everyone's finally showing up piece by piece, person by person, and we're getting a lot more of that, like, expository sort of, like, okay, this is what's happening and we're going and da-da-da-da, ETA 3 minutes, all that stuff. And then we get this weird moment that happens throughout the book with Chris specifically. With any time someone of the opposite sex is within 50 feet of Chris,
I know what you're going to say.
Do some sort of, like, yeah, it's like Jill comes in. She's been taking her sweet time, talking to the mysterious stranger, and no one knows where the heck she is, and she kind of, like, shows up last second, and the quote here is, abruptly she unhooked her belt and moved to sit next to him, being Chris. He caught a faint scent of her skin, a clean, soapy smell, which is the first of our, like, is that meant to be sexual? Like, moments for Chris?
There's a description of his eyes earlier. In the previous chapter. And then there was in the next paragraph. So this is the thing, is like, we're reading this as two people in their 30s in a post irony poisoned world in 2021.
Yes, which is a fair point.
Which is a fair point. This was written in 1998, but the next paragraph is, her voice was pitched so low he had to lean in to hear her over the throbbing of the engine. And I had to pause for a minute. It was like, throbbing? That's an interesting choice of words for the engine.
What are we going to talk about, Jill? Tell me, Jill, what's going on?
God.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's all so she can, like, she, like, basically implies to Chris that it's like his misgivings are probably right, and she because before Trent, and they mention Trent in quotes, which I always thought was funny. He leaves. He basically gives her the standard X-Files trust no one
Right.
sort of advice, and she passes on the same advice to Chris, being like, just we should trust nobody because we're mysterious and it's the 90s.
It's the X-Files is at its peak at the moment.
But then we so basically everyone, they roll out. They're on their way to go rescue the Bravos, not the Betas.
We could lean into them being betas.
I'm sure. Well, they got caught with their pants down. What's more beta than that?
Yeah, that's
or less beta, depending on how you interpret that sentence. But it brings me to my first pointedly, "Oh, that didn't age well" quote. And this is for anyone who's reading along. On the top of page 45, and basically they're going through their guns. They make a big deal out of Barry's 357 Python.
I know exactly what you're gonna. But go
exactly what I'm getting.
Yeah,
of course you do. They make a big damn deal out of these big damn guns, and Joseph, who we will not have to worry about for very long, spoilers, says, "I hope we don't need these," Joseph said, slapping in a clip, and Barry nodded agreement. Just because he paid his dues to the NRA didn't mean he was some trigger-happy dumbass looking to kill. He just liked guns. Oh, how the times have changed.
Oh, God. This is...
If they ever were that way to begin with, we don't have any evidence that that's really what the NRA was about in the 90s.
We don't.
You can't, anyone who would dare write that sentence in 2021 with a straight face deserves to be like a defense attorney for criminals. Like, that's just, if you can do that say that with a straight face, then you are liar on like a Trumpian level scale.
1998. Who is it? Is it still Charlton Heston?
It would have. I think it. Yeah, Heston. I believe so.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know what
actually starting in 1998. He was.
Is that when he started? Wow.
Yeah, 5-term president of the NRA from 98 to 2003.
And then it was Wayne LaPierre.
Yeah. God. Yeah. So cold dead hands.
Cold dead hands, baby. Cold dead hands. But I'm not a gun nut.
I'm not a gun nut. I just like guns.
On second thought, the more you delve into the explanation of it, the more you're like, actually, that might still work today.
Yeah. So it's really an early heel turn for Barry.
It's just immediately anyone reading in 2021 is like, I should trust this guy.
He paid I
don't know if he is who he says he is.
He did, huh? He paid his dues. Okay.
Great. Just great. Love that for him.
We truly love that for Barry. So yeah, they land. They got their guns. Barry pays his NRA dues.
Yeah, he was checking his phone and paying them on their website. This is ahead of its time. That was how forward thinking Barry was.
He was an early adopter to digital payments to the NRA
Absolutely.
Specifically.
Yeah, everyone told him it would never go anywhere. Who's laughing now?
Yeah, and then
nobody.
Right before they get out of the helicopter, Joseph says something like, "Hey, I just invested in this thing. It's called Bitcoin, and I got 10 Bitcoin in my crypto wallet. Hopefully, nothing happens to me, and the love of my life is able to access them in the event of my death."
And they all like hugged him and told him that they would never let anything happen to him.
Yeah,
and he's a special member of this team.
And then there was a standing ovation.
And an eagle flew through the air and gutted a liberal college professor.
That man was Albert Einstein. Anyway.
Yeah, that's how it's. And then the book ended.
That's the end of the book. No, we're just getting started.
That was book, but it was fast.
That was the end of chapter 3, and now we're.
I'd like to point out here at the beginning of chapter 4, I use the word copter. I write copter in my notes, and I immediately felt like, oh no, they got me! I've been tricked. God damn it.
You're a copter person now. You're not a chopper person anymore.
I'm a copter person. Oh, man. It's just saying it. I feel like I'm a toddler spinning around with my arms outstretched. I'm a copter.
They find the Bravos, or the Betas, as they had been referred to. They find correctly. They find them their helicopter.
Oh yeah, they find the copter.
It's just kind of like smoking and sitting there and not working anymore. And so they start spreading out and, doing a little search in the perimeter, say, hey, what's up? And then things take a turn for the worse.
The worst.
When it seems like they find a hand, a disembodied hand, and pretty much immediately, our good friend, Bitcoin innovator Albert Einstein, Joey boy Joseph, really just my favorite character in the whole book.
Oh, he was so good.
So good. Like, gets his throat ripped out by a dog.
Oh, just taken down in the prime of his life, 3 days before retirement. Down he goes.
Absolutely eviscerated. And I'm not...
just torn to shreds.
It's like to shreds, you say. Just absolutely destroyed by a dog. Yeah, one of those Zambo dogs. We don't know that they're zombies yet. We don't know that they're zombies yet.
They are skinless, and that's
They are skinless, and that's usually a giveaway that something is wrong with them.
You see a skinless dog, usually you're dealing with a zombie. Every now and then, mites. But it's mostly zombies.
Sometimes it's just mange, bad case of mange.
Yeah, exactly. You get cream, steroids, they're fine. But either way, if your dog is if it's mange or zombie and your dog kills Joseph, consider a muzzle.
That's just good safety practices.
Yeah. Be a good neighbor.
Be a good neighbor. Yeah. State Farm is there. Joseph dies.
God damn it. Yeah, Joseph's dead. He's dead. He's not coming back.
He's dead. He's not coming back. The team does not take it well.
No. He just dies.
Because Joseph was their favorite, and they just waste a ton of bullets on these dogs that just aren't dying.
They do. They do. They learn immediately what anyone who's played a Resident Evil game learns pretty quick. Don't shoot the dog. Just run.
Just save the ammo and run around it. You're better off just holding that sprint button, because I gotta tell you, they are a son of a bitch to actually hit.
Yeah, they are, and it's not worth it. Just run. You'll probably take one hit, but you'll be okay. There's some green herb in the next room.
Exactly.
Yeah, it sucks, and they are running from these dogs, and then Pilot Brad, who's my second favorite character after Joseph, he chickens out, and he takes that copter. He takes it out of there without the team. He flies out of there. No, Brad.
He is like, you know what? I am making a business decision right now. And he pieces out. And you know what? I was not expecting this out of somebody whose nickname is Chicken Heart. I assumed that it was... that it was like an ironic nickname. It wasn't. It was literal nickname. Which also
you expect more from a guy known as Panty Waist McGee, and they, it's just, you can't put your faith in anybody these days.
No,
man.
You can't.
It's bad.
So he pieces out, and they're left holding the doggy bag.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah, I was waiting. I might insert like a laugh track on that one.
Yeah, we're gonna have a talk about that.
It's just a lot of running. There's pages and pages of running.
55 pages of running. I'm not screwing with you people. It's a lot of running.
It's a lot of running, lungs aching. And finally, they get to the mansion, which, Wesker has led them to, more or less. Maybe Wesker isn't what he seems. Ooh. But yeah, Wesker kind of knew exactly where the mansion was from. They are now in the mansion where the evil has taken residents.
Oh!
Boo!
Look at what you did! Kevin! Kevin! Oh, I'm not mad. I'm impressed.
Our chapter ends with Wesker silently cursing Brad Vickers again and wondered if they were any better off inside than out. And that is what we call foreshadowing.
That's, the somewhere a foreshadowing angel got its wings. Just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
All right, so we're cooking now. We're cooking a little bit.
Yeah.
We're in chapter 5. What's going on in chapter 5 here?
Now, well, in chapter 5, we get, I heard the music in my head. Now, I never finished Resident Evil 1, but I played the crap out of Resident Evil 2. And the moment you get into that mansion, you can hear that sparse, weird piano music in my head. And that's the thing about this book. You can't help but feel, correctly, I believe, that this book is written for people who have played the game.
Yeah, this is not for people who are here. Let's be honest. There are probably some people out there that were only allowed to read the books and couldn't play the game or whatever.
Sure.
But the target audience of this book is people who could see the game room by room in their head.
Yeah. And the whole thing, and I think this is actually a pretty decent, kind of a vaguely cosmic horror description on page 56, without having to get into a ton of the details. We've got a quote here that says, Jill took a deep breath and decided immediately that she didn't like it. There was a sense of wrongness to the vast room, an atmosphere of vague oppression. It felt haunted somehow, though by who or what she couldn't say. And I really do not appreciate the description of my bedroom in 2021. But that's... we
Very
have
good,
fun
sir.
here. We have fun here.
We have fun.
On Pixel Lit. And there's an offhand mention, by the way, of an antique typewriter.
I like that she folded the literal typewriter at which you save your game into the book.
Yeah, a little Easter egg. And there are a few of those in the book. But that's the first one that I noticed where it was like,
yeah.
I see what you did there.
Yep.
And so they're all kind of taking their time. And Chris decides that he's going to go and inspect a noise that they all hear, which, as we all know, is always the smartest decision.
Yeah.
Go by yourself to inspect the noise after you've been chased by mange-ridden zombie dogs.
S.T. Perry actually writes in something about the stars are trained to actually go off on their own or to move without partners or backup or something like that.
Yes, she did. And that's good writing, actually. It's not good writing, but it's at least some level of an explanation.
It's like I give her a ton of credit for writing in justifications for dumb decisions that characters make.
That's the reason you never hear about the stars anymore. They all died one by one. We'd love to tell you how they died, but they were all by themselves, and we never found out.
We never found out. They all disappeared.
Never found out. They literally went extinct. The Shriners had a longer legacy than stars.
I highlighted this. That Beretta that Joseph had found out in the field, the pale, blood-spattered fingers still wrapped around it. A STARS team member dead or dying, and thanks to Brad, they didn't even have a Band-Aid to offer. And I was just thinking, I think somebody who's missing their hand is going to need a lot more than a Band-Aid.
Hey, listen. I know that your hand is missing, but don't worry. I've got a SpongeBob Band-Aid. Although, anyone who's played Resident Evil 7 knows that hands can be reattached with, basic tools.
You just need a staple gun and some of that goop to pour on it, and you're good to go.
Yeah. And a few rednecks to help you out.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
There's that novelization. I'd read that.
I'm sure Actually, I'm not going to say I'm sure it exists, but I would love it to exist. And actually, I would love.
We will find out.
I wouldn't mind writing it myself.
Oh God, I'd have fun with that one. Holy cow! I'm telling you what, right at this point, listeners, the newest Resident Evil game, Resident Evil Village, has not yet been released, but I have already preemptively been denied the opportunity to write the novelization of that one because they did not. They got the 150-page fan fiction of the 900-foot tall woman with the boobs and the hat from me, with the Mary Sue character Bill Feeling, and they really did not. They didn't take me seriously.
They didn't appreciate that one.
No, they did not appreciate that. They didn't get what I was. They didn't pick up what I was putting down.
You know, I think you should really just carry on with that fan fiction, though. I mean,
oh yeah, no, I just hit my 500th page. Our second child was born recently.
Let me tell you, the internet will celebrate it.
They will. The internet celebrates a lot of weird stuff, and that's one of them that I know I'll find my tribe through that one. I suppose this is a good time to announce that I recently became engaged.
Yeah. Congratulations. I mean, I've congratulated you several times, not on a podcast, but
she is really over my crush on Lady.
I bet that's why I never even mentioned it to my wife.
Oh, you're a smarter man than me. It was not. She is over it. Her biggest complaint was, who wears a hat that big? It's not practical. And I knew. I was like, there she is. She's the one.
There it is. That's the woman for me.
The woman. She's the one. So while he's investigating, Chris finds our first zombie. Round of applause. And he's remarkably intuitive about it too. I got a quote here from page 62. Where it says, he hit the door with one shoulder, was vaguely aware that it latched closed behind him as he stared at the fallen, stinking heap. Dead! That thing's the walking goddamn dead! All in hyphens. The cannibal attacks in Raccoon, all of them near the forest. He'd seen enough late-night movies to know what he was looking at, but he still couldn't believe it. Zombies.
Yes.
So we cut straight to the core here.
I actually really appreciated this because... Let me tell you, one of my pet peeves about almost every piece of zombie fiction that has come out in the past 20 or so years, aside from Resident Evil, is the refusal to just actually acknowledge them for what they are. So like The Walking Dead, it was like, oh, the walkers or the blah, blah, blahs or the whatever, you know, pick some sort of... It's not like zombie is a copyrighted term, but it's
like kind of gauche to call them a zombie. I guess you come off as like cheesy and
right. Just call them a zombie. Come on, get it over with.
We all know what we're.
Stop trying to construct some new. It's basically that scene from Mean Girls. Stop trying to make fetch happen.
Right. Stop trying to make Walker happen.
And
we are sick of it. We do not watch your show anymore.
Miss Perry, SD Perry, she just writes that, oh, he's seen the movies. He knows what he's looking at. It's a zombie.
Right.
And meanwhile, in every movie in the past 20 years, it's like, oh, what is it? It's the undead, blah, blah, blah. And they somehow...
They ought to be dead.
They somehow dance around using the term zombie for like 20 goddamn minutes until some slang term pops up. And it infuriates me because it just feels like it's a writer who is just tap dancing around and is just like, look at how clever I am.
Say the word.
Look at how clever I am. Just say it. Just go ZOMBIE period. News. Just move on with your goddamn story.
Right. They want to make their own version of it. They want to brand their own thing. And it's like, come on, man, you didn't invent this. Like, you didn't
invent this. It's like having vampires and then never using the term vampire.
Right.
It's like if Vampire the Masquerade had somehow called itself Vampire the Masquerade and never used vampires otherwise, or something like that. It's like
I am gonna point out, as a huge Vampire the Masquerade fan, they actually do avoid using vampire pretty frequently. They're either called kindred or Canaanites.
You know, that's today I learned.
Yeah, there you go. They do have a lot of, but it's a little more gracefully done, I find, and it's got decades of crap to back it up. It's my favorite role-playing game, so maybe I forgive it for that. But otherwise, you're absolutely right. You need to stop this stupid shit. Everyone else, other than the thing that I like, is wrong.
Just call it the thing that it is. That's all I'm saying.
The thing that it is. Yeah. And speaking of that writing, there's actually some really gruesome stuff described here, and I will say that the thing that impressed me. That continues on, by the way. She doesn't do it once and forget about it, the author. She describes the stink of the corpses. Yeah. The walking corpses. And that's like one of the things that you're not going to be able to experience in the video game. And she kind of grabs onto that so that it's like a really clever way of establishing the difference between reading a book of Resident Evil and playing the game. And I appreciated that.
Yeah.
As, adaptation. That was kind of cool. And she does a good job.
It's leaning into the strength of the different medium.
It's one of the last times she'll be able to do that in this book, by the way. So strap in. It's one of the last moments that you're like, oh, I see why they made this into a book, and like there's some there's a value here. Like it's one of the last moments. So really, really savor that.
Also, I really enjoyed that she wrote this sentence: behind him, a wet movement. I never knew that I needed to hear the word wet used like that until that moment.
Oh yeah. That's like that's a morning. That's the only way you can describe a morning after a night of drinking gin, a wet movement. It is not pleasant. You're not proud of yourself.
It's not a BM. It's a WM.
A zombie. Yeah. Oh yeah. God, I just want the listeners to get to know who I am right off the bat. That's I'm establishing my character here.
Gin and wine and Southern is 3 words that really come up right away.
That's pretty much me. Gin and wine and Southern. Yeah. You know what? I'm not going to argue with that. That's about it. That's pretty solid, to be completely honest. I think I'm just disappointed that you got my number that
fast. There's a brief interlude where they write about we hear about Barry's wet work that he did down in Ecuador.
Oh, right. Some random ass. Yeah.
Barry had once done covert hostage rescue in Ecuador, where a group of farmers had been held for weeks by a band of insane guerrilla rebels. Several of the hostages had been killed early in the siege, and after the Stars managed to capture the rebels, Barry had gone with one of the survivors to record the deaths. Their 4 victims had been shot, their bodies dumped behind a small wooden shack after the rebels had taken over.
Yeah, he has his, like, Alfred, some people just want to watch the world burn moment.
It was basically the only reason it gets brought up is because the zombies remind him of the dead farmers who had been left out in the sun and their skin had been like peeled back and all that stuff. As the book really gets into it, and as you mentioned earlier, yeah, she really doesn't hold back on the descriptions of dead bodies.
No, it's and if you're a gore fan, if you like horror stuff, it's good. It's good stuff. It's well written.
Hey, thanks for listening to episode 1 of Pixel It. If you haven't already, subscribe and leave a 5-star rating. On the next episode, we dive deeper into Resident Evil: The Umbrella Conspiracy. Here's a sneak peek right now. Not to get off on too much of a tangent, but, we're here.
We're here. It's that time.
It's
You're
that
here.
time. And I swear, ladies and gentlemen, and ladies and gentledoms, we're going to get past a few more chapters tonight. Don't you worry. But
We're not. This is as far as we go.
they go back to the fancy-ass atrium of the estate, and Wesker is gone.
And a loud chord plays.
This is just a reminder for later, future Kevin, make sure you cut it out. Insert a loud MIDI chord being played. Thanks, man. You're the best.
Future Kevin, you're doing God's work, my friend.
Yeah, he's a really great guy, and he's 100% for sure going to cut all this back and forth about the MIDI chords out.
But we know they're there. We know they're around.
We know they're around. They're not Bigfoot. Zombies are more like Bigfoot. Actually, probably even less plausible than Bigfoot, because we have photos of Bigfoot.
And also less friendly.
Yeah.
You know, like Bigfoot, like if I found out Bigfoot was real tomorrow, I'd be kind of pumped. If I found out zombies were real tomorrow, I wouldn't feel good. I'm not feeling good thinking about it right now.